Okay. Okay, here in California, we're still saying good morning. So good morning, good afternoon in Miami.
Good.
Rabbi Schapiro. Rabbi Schapiro, what year did you open the yeshiva in Miami?
Tovshin Lamed Aleph. This is 1970. It was the end of 73.
1973, so almost 50 years.
Yeah, almost 50.
Soon it'll be 50 years, Mr. Shem. So before we begin, I have to thank you for two things. Well, 2.5 things. First of all, the 2 years that I spent in Miami in your yeshiva were indescribably enjoyable and productive and rich. It was just 2 beautiful years in Emes. Good friends, made a lot of good friends there. And with you and Rabbi Abrams, it was very, very beautiful years, 2 of them. In particular,
Can you remind me which years those were?
I believe it was Nun Zayin and Nun Ches. So 1997, 98, and 98, 99. Very good years. Shmuki Man was the Menahel, but it was very enjoyable years. And it was ironic because Miami Beach was eye-opening for me. I had never seen anything like Miami Beach before. I came from Minnesota and went to Detroit and then went to Morristown and then landed in Miami Beach. But ironically, it was 2 of the best years, just great years. And in particular, the shir in Yana Gula Moshiach that you gave, that you probably still give, which is very relevant now because it's coming a Siyam Rambam today and tomorrow. We're finishing the Rambam. And the sichos that you taught in that particular class were from the Rebbe's Hadrins on Rambam. Such enjoyable sichos and presented so seriously. You made us think. Anyway, it's very enjoyable. I don't want to make it
Still
too
goes
heavy.
down now. Now it's not Tafkir Gula Mashiach. I teach sichos every day, the same half hour, the same 4:30 to 5, and it still goes on. It's going down. This is from.
You know, it's miraculous because 4:30 to 5, the worst time of the day, concentration-wise, coming back from lunch, it's not easy, but it was the best time of the day. Just amazing memories. And we learned so much in those. The beautiful thing was you hardly ever stuck to the sikha. It was always you started with the sikha and then the conversation went, and it was very, very good. Learned a lot. Anyway, that's the first thing that I had to thank you for. And the second thing that I had to thank you for is this new project of learning Likutei Sichos. This project Likutei Sichos, which I understand you were very involved with at its inception.
I can't say I was involved in arranging it, but I was involved in chizuk and giving things and pushing them and showing how important it is. Yeah.
I think that your reaction to their idea was a do or die, and it lit a fire under it, and it's so amazing. It's so enjoyable, and it feels so right to be learning these sichos, and actually now I'm uncovering that you're not so original. Most of the stuff you said came from the Rebbe. I remember stuff that you said during those sichos, during those classes, and now I'm suddenly discovering so many of them in. Echte v'oshuv. I remember you talking about echte v'oshuv. I come back from the country.
Right.
Anyway, I hope that you're proud of the project, the way it's unfolding, because it's
actually that the way it started is learning the sichos that I was more involved in writing. That's why I'm able to give him not every week. From time to time, I give him a copy of the Rebbe's Ksav Yad of how the Rebbe was Magiya the Sikha that adds, to the learning. That when you learn and you see how it was written and what the Rebbe changed, and the second Haggadah, this all makes it much more exciting, much more, shmak.
100%. And the fruits of your labor so many years later. I mean, the nachas that you gave to the Rebbe is between you and the Rebbe, but the fact that so many more people are learning the Sikha now, all these years later, and not just the big chachamim, but every simple Lubavitcher that's involved with this project is learning these very complex and sometimes very difficult sichos. It's very, very good. We owe you big time. This I can say. All right. So the purpose of this interview, these interviews, is to understand von wann it kommt a Yid. I mean, you experience a Chassidish Yid, you experience a good person, and then you start to wonder who put him together, who was his, who influenced him, who inspired him. It's not so simple that a chassid is built by a rebbe. The rebbe inspires everybody, but a chassid is built by a lot of people, by mashpiyim and different characters. So I've been enjoying these interviews of asking people who were the ones that shaped you. So if we could start from the beginning, we'll go from the beginning. I think you were, where did you, Me'ayin Basa, von wann it kommt a Yid, originally, when you were born, where'd you come from? Where were you?
I was born actually in France. I don't know how many people know that.
No.
I was 6 years old when we left France and our family moved to America, which means right after the war, when hundreds of Lubavitcher families escaped Russia with false passports, with forged passports, they escaped Russia. So my parents were one of them. My grandfather, my uncles, my aunts, they were all part of this escape, which is hundreds and hundreds of families escaped from Russia. The first place they came to was to Germany in the DP camps in a city called Poking. And then after a short while, most of them came to France. And from France, that's where some went to Israel, some went to America. So my parents came to France. They happened to live there for 6 years. I was born the second week that they came to France. My mother even always used to tell me that when she gave birth to me, it took a while till they brought the baby. And they told her, you have a gerson. She had no idea what that means, if it's a boy or a girl. So for a few hours, she didn't know if it's a boy or a girl. That was the system, that they wouldn't give the baby to the mother right away. So it was mamish, as soon as they came to France, that's where I was born. When I was 6 years old, my parents came to America. The joint was the one that brought them and paid for them for all the refugees. So they got them to come to Cleveland. But on the way to Cleveland, we stopped off in New York and went to Yechidus. And I was in New York. And by bar mitzvah, I went from New York and I came to learn. I went from Cleveland, and went to learn to New York. And I stayed for 3 years. I dormed, not in the yeshiva. I went to Bedford Avenue, but I dormed in my grandfather's house.
So you remember anything from
my
France?
grandfather was one of the people who had a great hashpah.
Your grandfather, Reb Zalman Valenkin.
Zalman Valenkin, who was the Rebbe's teacher, the Rebbe's malam.
So you remember anything from Paris?
I remember a little bit from Paris, yes. What was there, the joint, when they brought all these people to Paris, they divided the Lubavitch community into different places. A certain group stayed in Paris, and they had bought or rented a building, which used to be a hotel called Modern. That's where tens of families stayed. Others were in Sever, others was in Brunois, different places. We stayed in Modern. And I still remember from there. There were not too many kids of my age. So my parents hired a melamed for me and another boy. His name is Yossel Minkowitz. Rabbi Minkowitz was he was years already the principal of the Srivke in Montreal. So we both had the melamed. The melamed was Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef was a very big Chassidish Yid. His father was Rabbi Solneach HaGodol, Rabbi Solneach, which is known as the Solneach was there. So Rabbi Solneach I didn't see there, but on Yosef was our melamed, so he had ashpa. And I remember him teaching me Aleph Beis and teaching me how to read. Started teaching me Chumash together with Yossel Minkowitz. And I remember from Paris the way things looked. Actually, years later, when my children learned in Brunois, I came to visit them. So we went to Paris. I wanted to see. So I couldn't get into the building, but I remember the street. Across the street, there's a hospital. And I remember there was a big street, and the hospital was there. When I came there later, it wasn't such a big street. But no, it was small, but as a kid, I remember things from Paris. I remember vaguely the time when the previous Rebbe passed away. So it's a tumult and everything. Sorry, that's in my mind and then I was just 3 years old then. I remember that. So I remember, and then from there we came to Cleveland.
It must have been such a disaster for the Chassidim in Paris that were striving to get to the Frierdiker Rebbe.
Yes.
It wasn't like anybody anticipated such a thing happening. Yud Shvat.
Yeah. Shvat, this was something that, I don't know if it's called off guard, but it was sure no one expected, because the worst of situation, you wouldn't expect it. The Rebbe, but certainly Lamaisa that this is going to happen then. So it was, but they all got in the bandwagon of making the Rebbe into Rebbe. I even tell you, my father told me that when they were still in Germany in the DP camps, my father was one of the Askonim there, the activists there in the community, because they had a lot of Yidden there, all kinds. You had Lubavitchers and you had the Hungarians and you had all kinds. So the Rebbe came to France in Tafshin Zion. And his mother was one of the group, of one of those that escaped Russia. She came to France, and the Rebbe came to Paris to work on getting papers for her to come to America. So the Rebbe came for a few months. He stayed in Paris. So the Lubavitcher of Poking, of the DP camps, sent a delegation to speak to the Rebbe. A delegation from them. So they came to Paris. Who were the delegation? Two people, Rebbe Shemtev and Reb David Bravman. Reb David Bravman was a brother-in-law of Reb David Raskin, a very Chassidish young man. He was a very, very close friend of my father. My father was a Chassidish Yid, and from Bochum, I think they were friends. And so my father had some questions to ask, to figure out in his work. So when David Bravman was going there, he said, do me a favor, you're going to go see the Rebbe's son-in-law, the Rebbe was known as Ramash, ask him these questions. He didn't even tell me what they were, but ask him these questions. He went, I don't know how long they stayed, they came back, they gave a report. So David Bravman told my father, he asked him the questions, and the Rebbe's answer, he says, was mamish, clear answers, But then the word that I'm trying to say is what David Bravman told my father, the Negei the Rebbe. He said these words. That's what he told him. We spoke to him, we saw. What we see is, das ist arepskerid. These are words, arepskerid. Imagine. We'd say in other words, arepskerid, a Rebbe style type of yid. And the Rebbe there was a hat like this and with a short jacket with this. Arepskerid. And that made my father tell me the such an impression. So later when it came to Tafshin Yud, after the Rebbe's passing, so then everyone was there. Now, some people who did not know the Rebbe, because America, they all knew the Rebbe. Some of these people never saw the Rebbe before, they just know the Rebbe has a son-in-law, but they never saw the Rebbe. But this is one of the things that pushed it. But this is the words he said. Besides the answer that he gave, he said, which was mamish clear, like the Rebbe's answer, but he said, arepskeri. So, if you're asking what I remember from France, so this is what I remember. Can't hear you.
Sorry, when you're talking, I mute myself so you don't hear the background noise. I'm sorry. You want to tell us more about this Malamed? It was just the Malamed and the two of you?
Yes.
And his name was Blazinski?
No.
What was his last name?
An Yosef was his name. He's known as An Yosef. He's Belenitsky.
Belenitsky, I'm sorry, yeah.
This is Rabbi Solneach in Lubavitch was already called Rabbi Solneach HaGodl. He was already then. We're talking about in the years of Tafshin Yud, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, but in Lubavitch yet, in the Samachs, the Ayans, he was known as Rabbi Solneach HaGodl because there was another one who was younger. And this Rabbi Solneach was a real Siddish. When I was there as a kid, I never met him because he was in Brunei. When I mentioned before, I went back once, already years later, when my kids already learned there. I went back I was there to visit my children, and I was there for a Shabbos. So I spent some time with Rabbi Solneach. He was from the Amalek Yidden, from Mamish in the Rebbe Rashab's time. Avid, Emesach Siddish, didn't know of any Elam Hazard, didn't know anything. And this was his son. Now his son followed in his footsteps. His son also was a real Siddish Yid that Elam Hazard, things of this world, did not mean anything to him. Unfortunately, he was single. I heard that he did get married once and was married for a short while, but most of his life he was single. And later, the end of his life, he moved to America. He lived in Crown Heights for a little time. But so he taught us, besides teaching Pashat, he started from Alabase. Pashat, he was our Alabase teacher from 3 years old. And then Chumash, to read and Chumash, he instilled in us Chassidish values. To tell you exactly what he said to us, but I can't because we were little kids. But it was the way he said things, the way he was. First of all, it's Amalek Malamed, like a Malamed that you could say that 80 years ago. Because I'm talking now about 65%, close to 70 years ago. But I'm saying it was like somebody I'm a lamed of.
Was there a pripetchik? Was there a pripetchik? Did you have a pripetchik in the room?
It was actually in this building. I remember we had a room where we go. They had a shul there in Bruna, in the modern, the joint who gave each one, what was they gave? They gave each one room. Each family had a room. The kitchen was one kitchen for everybody, and each family had a room. But also they gave one room for a shul. And that was a real Chassidish place. Shabbos, there was Kiddushin, Verbringen, real Verbringen, Chassidish Eden Verbringens, and then there was the davening by Riches and learning Chassidus there. It was, and even as a kid, I remembered vaguely that Tzibur in that room. Remember the room? Remember the room? This was the room of the davening, which was so that's the room where we learned as kids. So we had, he sat with us and taught us, and I can't say exactly what he said to us, but he instilled in us the ganze cook, the whole approach, the whole outlook on life. We're kids. What do we know from life? But still, it's put in something that's even subconsciously, we got this in, even not knowing what, that put us in Chassidus, because he was a real Chassidish Yid. And I could say that Elam Hazeh was not Davis Market. This is like not by his father, not by him.
This was in a hotel. The Modern was a hotel.
It was, I think it was originally a hotel, and the joint bought it, or later on it became an apartment building. When I came to see it later, years later, I was this place about, I'd say 30 years ago, I don't know, maybe less even. So it was already an apartment building. People had apartments there. Then I think it was originally a hotel. That's where there was a lobby in the bottom, on the first floor. Remember, they used to come from the government in France. I think up to date, they give you money for children. For every child, the government gives you money. So I remember the guy used to come. I remember like now, a guy used to come and he would come out with a pack of money and all the women would come down. I remember as a kid, all the women would come down and he would take paper and look, whatever, and give you the money, francs or whatever it is. Left at Seer. Actually, one of the women who worked there later on was Megayer. She became a convert, and she married Rabbi Amram Bloy. Rabbi Amram Bloy, from the famous Rabbi Amram Bloy for the Eidach ladies from the Natura Karte, and everyone knew that last year he married a Gieres, a convert. It's her. She was very, very frum. She was, she years later, when we lived in Miami, she once came to visit. She collected money for the Natura Karte. Her husband had passed away already. So she came to our house. And she dressed mamish in black from top to bottom. And she was there. She looked at the watch and she said, I asked permission. I want to daven mincha. So she went to the side, daven mincha. So she was a Gieres. People knew her. Lubavitcher knew her from Modern.
She worked in that
hotel. Yeah, that's whatever her job was.
You know, you should feel very lucky, because nowadays people pay thousands of dollars to have that experience. It's called a Pesach hotel experience. People go with their families into a small room. There's a common dining room. Our own room is the show, and people pay $30,000 and have an amazing time. This was the original Pesach program, the original hotel Pesach program. Little did they know.
My grandfather lived there too, and his thing was, I'm mentioning him, besides everything else, we just forgot about what he used to sit and say Mishnais Balpeh all day. Mishnais Balpeh. So when someone of the Kinder Deineklach used to come in, he'd say, take the Mishnais, listen to what I'm talking. I remember I came to his, and he had a different, one apartment for him and his wife. It wasn't my grandmother, because grandmother passed away, but it's his wife. Remember, I sat down on the bed, and the bed had, at the four corners, had like sticks, like those beds used to have. And I gave a jump and I sat down and I banged myself here and I bit through my tongue. I remember they took me to the hospital across the street. That's why I remember that hospital. It was all when I remember sitting, the picture is like it happened now. This happened close to 70 years ago, maybe 68, 69 years ago. And I was sitting I remember like now, the picture of him sitting there. He was paralyzed already by then. And I did this, they rushed me to the hospital. And Baruch Hashem, I don't want to show, but I still have a simon in my tongue.
It didn't affect your speech, that's for sure.
Baruch Hashem.
So you went to Cleveland. You went on a boat. You went on a boat over the ocean.
By plane.
You went by plane.
He came by plane, the propeller planes, and
How long?
We left it. We got there. I think it took 24 hours.
But how long did it take to fly across the ocean?
Well, we stopped at the ocean, which now probably takes 6-7 hours.
Yeah.
Probably took then 15 hours, 18 hours.
You remember the plane ride?
Remember the plane ride? Remember that the Mendel Morozov was on the plane also, and I remember Mendel Morozov. I'm thinking, but I remember for sure Gamsburg, North Schomberg, Gamsburg, and his family were on the plane also. There were quite a few Lubavitchers on the plane.
People weren't afraid to go on the plane. It was pretty new.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very interesting. So you flew to you didn't fly straight to New York, did you?
No. We stopped off. I even remember that I was a kid. I never thought about this. Now that you're asking, we stopped in Ireland.
Oh.
Then the plane went to Canada. I think it went to all. And I remember Canada, and from Canada it went to New York.
To New York.
Yeah. Then a few days later we took a Greyhound. Was it a Greyhound or the train? I think it was a Greyhound to Cleveland.
It's very interesting to me because you said that your Zayda lived already in New York, or he came later. When you came to America.
No, he was in Cleveland already. He also was in Cleveland. The joint sent my Zayda, us, and my aunts and uncles from both sides. My father's brother, Levici Schapiro, and his family were.
Oh, the whole thing went to Cleveland.
And my other Mayor Dubrovsky, Mayor Valenkin, who also, they all were in Cleveland. They came earlier, with a few months earlier than us.
Oh, because I was going to say, if your grandfather was in New York, it's strange that you went to Cleveland, but
no,
everybody went to Cleveland.
He moved to New York later. The whole family they sent to Cleveland.
So when you came to Cleveland, you were already what, 7, 8 years old?
6.
6 years old. So who were your teachers then in Cleveland?
Well, Cleveland, like this, there is a school, and it's still there. It was a school called the Hebrew Academy. But the Hebrew Academy in many cities, like in Miami, is the more modern Orthodox. This is not. This is real frum. Hebrew Academy. But they call it Hebrew Academy. Then there was a Chassidish cheder called the Kalaver Yeshiva. The Kalaver Rebbe, who passed away just 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he passed away. He was long, he didn't have a beard, he was from the Holocaust. So he lived in Cleveland then. So he started a cheder. That was called the Kalaver Yeshiva. So I went to the Kalaver Yeshiva to learn. When I was 16.
Your teachers were Chassidim,
Chassidish, not Lubavitcher.
Yeah.
No Lubavitcher. Our family ended up, Zalma Kazan and his family were there already in Cleveland, but they were Chassidish. One of them, the first year, the Kalaver Rebbe's brother-in-law, his name was Rav Sheinfeld. So he was my Malamed for many years. I have to tell you, about 5 years, 7 years ago, I went to Eretz Yisrael because he's in Eretz Yisrael. He's a Rov in one of the Shchonot in Bnei Brak. So someone told me that they met this guy, and his name is Sheinfeld, and he said in Cleveland. So when I heard about it, I found out where he is. I called him up, and I went to visit him. It was after 50 years that I haven't seen him. 50 years. When I walked in, he made a broche b'shem u'malchus machaya meisen. Shem u'malchus. 50 years I haven't seen him.
He must be. Is he still alive?
Yes.
He must be a Svai Yomim. He must be a very, very old Baruch Hashem, a very old Jew.
Yeah, he's definitely in the 90s.
And I know Baruch Hashem. And he made a machaya meisen.
He made the broche. Now he made to me also machaya meisen. Actually, in his class, I was from the good students. I have to tell you, no one here to say it. I have to say it myself. Not as a teich that developed teiches of word. It says Yalucha zor v'lei picha, that a stranger should praise you, not your own mouth. So the vel teiches Yalucha zor, a stranger to praise. V'lei, that doesn't happen. So it's a vertel that the word says, but I saw the Mashah says this. The Mashah's not a joke. The Mashah says it.
Someone's got to say it.
The good students. So, and that's where I learned the cheder. So
what kind of a teacher was he?
He was a very good teacher. He was a Holocaust survivor. This was not many years after the Holocaust. I'm talking about Toshin Yud Gimel, or this already Yud Daled, 1954. How long was it after the Holocaust?
Less than 10 years after the Holocaust.
So he would tell us, I wouldn't say every day, but many times, tell us what went through the Holocaust. Stories that he told. And this was, he had his number on his hand, and he would tell us what, but that also instilled in us, a hergish, a certain feeling for Yidden. And he was a good Malamed also. He was a good teacher.
Strange, the Holocaust survivors then weren't talking very much. It's very rich.
To us in the class, he spoke. He used to tell us
He traumatized you. The parents didn't sue him for traumatizing the kids.
Nowadays, that would happen for sure.
That would happen, yeah.
No, it was. I kept it. The interest that the kids had, it was little kids. So little kids, on one hand, are more dramatized, but on the other hand, they're not so grasp it so much. So I don't even want to repeat the things I remember now that he told us. There's one thing I'll just mention it because whenever I say that posik in Tilim, there's a posik that says "V'nipetz es elolayich alasola." Then the one of the kapitlach, which means that the Eli had the little kids. Nipetz, he splattered them on the rock. So he told us he was there and he was watching when they used to. What did they do with the little babies? They didn't shoot. They didn't waste a bullet on the babies. They would take the babies, Rahman al-Islam, and bang on the head on a rock. Anyway, but he was a good Malamed.
Well, Mamish didn't hold anything back. If he told you that, he told you everything.
Yes, this is one of the main things I remember what he said. And every time I say that posik in Tehillim, whether it's Shabbos and Varchim or every day, it comes to my mind. Always.
No, I asked my father once, what's the pshat that we say Ashtei Sheyechez or Nipetz Alecha Salah? It's so brutal, it's so vicious. He said, Adarabah, but that's the Maila of Am Yisrael. We would never do it. We're not saying that we would do it, even though you have to imagine that a person like him would think that the people that did it to the Jewish babies, it's what given kedai that somebody should do it to their kids, but not that we would do it. Ashrei mi sheyechez v'nipetz. Somebody else should do it, and we would never do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we even don't do it. But this is the Malamed there. I learned there till I was 13 years old. 13 years old, the class stopped and everyone went to different yeshivas.
So there was no high schools.
Yeah, our school didn't have high school. So some went to Tels, since this was Cleveland, so Tels was in Cleveland. And some went to, I know, Nedi Yisrael, another guy went, a friend of mine. One friend of mine, which was actually a very, very close friend. We were the two Chavrus, as kids, in class. Remember, they used to teach the class. He used to send us out to Chazar ourselves because we would chap the Gemara right away. So I also didn't see him for a long, long time. And a few years ago, I saw him. How did I see him? There was a sign. I went to Fabring in the Shul Bell Harbor, and they had a sign up a few days before. And he was on vacation in Miami, and he was down in the Shul Bell Harbor. He saw the Leibel Schapiro. So he came to the Fabring.
So he surprised you. He surprised you.
He surprised.
Oh, that's very
He's
nice.
surprised. I didn't surprise him because he saw it a few days before. Right. But yeah, he surprised me. Yeah.
That's very nice.
Right there in Gavani, he gives a shit. Yeah, in Baltimore. He lives in Baltimore. Right?
Okay, so I'm going to put up a picture of your Zayda. Okay.
Which one? There's a picture of his later age and the younger age. I don't know which one even. Whatever it is.
I think maybe it's going to be all of
I like the picture of his older age because that's the way I remember him. The younger one, I don't remember in that. I could recognize it. But, until you're picking it up, give me 1 second. I want to put the air conditioner colder. Oh, good.
These are all three pictures of him, yeah?
Yes. Different ages. The one I remember is the one to my left.
Yeah. The one with yeah. The one with the oldest. So you moved from Cleveland into his house in Crown Heights.
Right. By then he was in Crown Heights already, because I came in the end of Tov Shechov, which is the middle of 1960. So he had lived in Crown Heights for a few years, because he came to America, as I said before. They sent him to Cleveland, but then, for make it better for him, easier, it was a good idea he should move to New York. So after, maybe we'll get into the stories how it happened, but he moved to New York and he lived already in New York. So I stayed. My older brother already came to New York to learn 2-3 years before me. So he stayed there. And then when I came, I also stayed there. Now you have to remember, nowadays this wouldn't fly. Where did we sleep? It was only one bedroom in that house. It was a dining room and one bedroom and a kitchen. That's all. In the dining room, there were 2 beds, one on one side by the wall, one on the other side. One my brother slept, when I slept. That's the room that they ate. That's the room where my Zayda used to sit in it and daven and learn and whatever it is. And that's where, nowadays, I don't think children would go for that. But so that's when I moved into him, yes.
But that means that you went to sleep with him sitting nearby, learning or whatever he was doing.
Yeah. Different times, yes. Yeah.
So where did this Zayda B'Zalman Valenkin come from?
He was born in the city of Podebranke. He lived in Podebranke.
In Russia?
In Russia. There's another person that we all know was born in Podebranke. That's the Rebbe's father, Leibel. They were a month apart, 2 months apart in age. They were all born in the year Tov Reish Lamed Ches. I don't know what that is in English. They were very good friends.
1878.
Yeah.
Actually, that picture of him looks a little bit like the Rebbe's father. Looked a little bit like the picture of the Rebbe's father.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he was there, and he did not learn in Lubavitch. I think he's older. He was born in Lamed Ches. So when Lubavitch was established in Nun Zayin, he was 19 years old. So I don't know till Lubavitch got there, but he never learned till Lubavitch. He was Lubavitcher family, Lubavitcher, but he learned very well, and he had a very good head. And he was friends with the Rebbe's father. And the Rebbe's father, when he became the Rov of Kataminas, he sent him a letter saying, we need Shochtim here. We need Yerushalayim Shochtim. And Zayda became a Sheikhet. So he said, I would like you to come here, move here. So he accepted the offer and he moved to Kataminas. The thing was that there was no Shechita available at the time he got there. So he said, in the meantime, teach my children.
Doesn't mean there was no Shechita available.
All the Shochtim were there. Probably when
there was no positions available.
Sheikh left or passed away or something, knew the Sheikh. At the time till he came, there was not available anymore. So he told him to teach his children. Then 2 years later, something that became available, he didn't want to give it to him. Because he was such a good malamed to his kids.
So he was a private malamed for the Leivik's kids? He wasn't the cheder teacher?
They made a cheder. This was a cheder. The Rebbe and his brothers, and then a few more people, a few more students. They got together. It wasn't like an official school. They got together. Actually, the Rebbe told my aunt when they made a matzeva, so when they came into the Rebbe, and she gave the Rebbe the copy of the matzeva, the Rebbe said, it looks good. But then he says, why doesn't it say there that he taught Yiddish Kinderlach and Amenedis?
It didn't say anything about the fact that he was the Rebbe's teacher?
Not 1 second. That's when it was written on paper.
Right.
The Rebbe, why doesn't say that? And then even Aedis, and the Rebbe mentioned a few people who learned that. You could ask. Nochem Goldschmidt was there. A few kids, I think maybe 8 kids or something that they put together. So the Rebbe said to her, I'm jumping the gun for them, but the Rebbe said to her, the night that she was on Yechid, the Rebbe said, tonight Rabbi Jacobson is also coming into me. And he's from the Chevra Kadisha. So I'll talk to him about it, what to write. And she was waiting there in the Kadet Natachten. Rabbi Jacobson came out, and he took the paper and he wrote down these words that it says now. That was, so he didn't say the Rebbe told me these words, but as soon as he came, the Rebbe said, I'll speak to him what to write. When he came out, he wrote down these words.
It sounds like he told the Rebbe what he wants to write.
maybe, and
No,
but the Rebbe agreed,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. So, did he tell you stories about that when he taught the Rebbe, or he didn't talk about it?
Not too much. He just said like some things he did say. He said that the Rebbe, even as a child, was not like everybody else who would play. A given the Lashon used to be a farzichdiker. Farzichdiker was always in himself, never played, always learned. The Gewaldike had that you saw. He even said, remember once when they just started learning Gemara, in the middle he asked Sakasha, he said, which was a Meidig Kasha. He had no answer, but he said it remained in his mind at the Kasha. But Bechlal, see, there were different ages also, so he used to teach a few, and the other ones would chazer, and then so a lot of times the Rebbe would go out, and the Rebbe would sit by himself or with somebody else and chazer. But he was a malamed of his for a long time, for 4.5 years. He said, the Loshen, he said he was 9 zmanim. Zman is half a year as a man. 9 zmanim learning. So it was, yeah, four years.
The Rebbe told some stories about at Fabringen. The Rebbe told some stories about his Malamed.
So sometimes
which of those stories are about Reb Zalman, about Yuzeda?
I don't know.
You don't know?
One time he said clearly, "Chigat Malamed, not Kichosid." No one knew what he was talking about, and people didn't. And I said, "My Zayda told me." I remember no one that after he finished with him, he still had a Malamed for a year. He had another person a Malamed. Then he learned with his father only. I didn't remember the name, but now they figured out. They have it. They know already who he is, and in the early years book, they have a picture and who he is. For a year, to learn with him. So that's the Malamed that the Rebbe said, not a Chosid, that must be. But some other things that the Rebbe said, Malamed, could be as him. If I bring ones, the Rebbe said he wanted to, when my uncle came out of Russia, Sholem, and he came to the Rebbe with a group, of Russians who came, the Rebbe wanted to give a bottle of mashke, so the Rebbe said that everyone, I remember the Russian, Kulam Ahuvin could give to anybody. So who should he give it to? But there's one person that I owe him. His father was my Malamed. So he gave him the bottle of mashke to give out. So he mentioned him as a Malamed. But like this, with the Rebbe, my Zayde Bechlal was, the Rebbe, whenever he came to Fabrengen, let me tell the story about Trotius. He was paralyzed. He got paralyzed when he was, I think, still in Germany in the DP camps before they came to France. He had a stroke, I guess, and he was paralyzed.
He was a survivor?
He wasn't in the Holocaust. He was in Russia.
But
he was from the refugees from Russia. They're also survivors. How many people didn't survive?
Right.
So he was paralyzed. Ness was, it didn't affect his speech because it was on the other side. And it didn't affect the mind, but his hand and his foot, one hand and one foot, he couldn't move. So he couldn't walk. He slept, he couldn't. So he couldn't come Shabbos to Yom Tov to Fabrengen. But any weekday Fabrengen, my uncle, his son-in-law, my uncle, would bring him by car. But he couldn't sit there all these hours, like 6 hours or 7 hours. So or he would bring him before the Rebbe walked in, and he would have to leave in the middle. Or he would bring in the middle and he'd stay till the end. But whenever, let's say, he came in the beginning and he left, before he left, he walked over to the Rebbe and said, L'chaim. He went over. And then they schlepped him and took him out. On the back of the stage, there's a door, goes straight by the bimah. So he would go to that. As soon as the Rebbe, he walked over to the Rebbe stood up. Like this. Didn't stand up all the way because the whole Elam would stand up. So he stood up like this. Didn't sit down till he saw him out the door. He looked, followed with his eyes, saw him taking, and he was still standing like this. Or when he would come in, if the Rebbe would see him coming in the middle, the Rebbe would stand up and not sit down. That's how covered the Rebbe had. The shows covered how you have to, after your teacher had to cover to his Malamed.
Klotz kasha. When the Rebbe stood up, a klotz kasha. When the Rebbe stood up like that, the Elam didn't stand up?
No. Only if he stood up. He just said that, yeah. That's one of the reasons probably when the Rebbe made Kiddush, he made it like this. He didn't stand because he didn't want everyone to stand up. But I heard from the Rebbe himself on Yechidus, which I was once with my father. That was the time when he was going to move to New York. And there was discussions. New York, the government subsidy was not the same. So the Rebbe told my father he should go to speak to a person who works in the government. I think he said his name is Friedman. And he's the Boyane Rebbe's son. And the Rebbe says, you could tell him that I asked that he should help. You could tell him, I still remember the Blätter Gemara that I learned with him. So he said. Also, when my grandfather came to America, when they came, so they also stopped off in New York, and from New York they went to Cleveland. So they stopped off in New York. He went to Yechidus. As soon as he walked in, the Rebbe stood up fully, and the Rebbe asked him to sit. He said, "No, he's not going to sit." So the Rebbe said, "If you don't sit, I'm not going to sit." So they both stood. So for about an hour, Yechidus, they were both standing. Then when he moved to New York again later, when he came, he went to Yechidus. The Rebbe again stood up and asked him to sit. So he told the Rebbe he doesn't want to, but he has no choice. He just can't stand. So the Rebbe said to him, mit 40 Jahren zurück, I think he said the Lashon, 40 Jahre zurück, seine beide gesessen bei ihm Gemara, weil wir nicht sitzen beide zusammen. 40 years ago, we sat by one Gemara, we'll sit now all together. That he told over. But that when he said, I remember the Gemara, I was there. I remember when they never told this to my father because he was dealing with this thing because he didn't have Social Security, he never worked. LMI there, so I don't know, Stam still exists, called relief. Older people so the relief gave more money or was easier to get on in Cleveland than in New York. So they had to work out before he moved, to work out that. So that's what the Rebbe said, go to him and speak to him, tell him I asked, he should help. Tell him, as
the Biyana Rebbe's son?
I think that's what he said.
And the Rebbe learned together? Is that what that was? Did I understand that correctly?
No.
Oh, help him because I remember when I learned together with him.
Yeah, he helped him. Because I remember, he said, I learned by him, and I still remember the Blätter Gemara.
And so you should help him.
Yeah, help him. Yeah.
So what kind of a personality was it, Zalman Valengan? I mean, everybody knows he was the Rebbe's Malamed, but he was a fire person, or he was a quiet person? What was he?
The Midas Tevis and the Edelkeit that he had, I have never seen another person like that. So edel, so a word of Lashon Hara, or a schlechte Wort of him, is nicht gewinn Sheiches Bechlau. His Edelkeit was ein L'Shayer. Also, he had what we call a peh mapik margolius. When he was masber ha'inyan, he said such a keach hasbara. When he would chazer ha'maimer and tie shoes and explain it, I, as a kid, would listen to it and understand. Because he lived in Cleveland, so comes a Yom Pagre. This was before they had the big things. They would come to his house, except with the skislet. My father would make a big suda, and my Zayda would schlepp the broad there too. My Zayda would chazer the maimer. My father gave the Joshua, my Zayda would chazer the maimer. But the maimer that he chazer, I as a kid was able to understand. Mitzvatel Moshel wasn't a big thing. In his house, they would come, there's no chassidim there. All of the Polish they used to come there and listen. But and he was masbedin. I remember one Yud Shvat, he was masbedin of Ein Neiden Ulvadei. So clear. As in Shtokin, there's no other, nothing else. It was so clear. I remember it was in Cleveland. It used to be very cold in the middle of the winter, snow. So I remember when this finished and he was the whole Fabrengi was to be masbed Ein Neiden Ulvadei. So I remember at the end, after it finished, people got up to leave. They were all not Lubavitch people without beards. So one guy is looking, who is my kaloshin? Where are my boots? It was snowing outside. And one guy turns around to him, seriously, and I was a kid, I remember this, says, kaloshin, what's kaloshin, man, kaloshin, there's nothing but the kaloshin, he was looking for his boots. And it wasn't a joke, it was because he said it so good. Because he had a pen mapik margolius, and he would explain an inyan. Like I said before, he was the chlolus, like a boki b'shas, everything. I don't know, like a boki b'shas, he knew everything. But in Mishnais, he knew Balpeh. First, he knew Mishnais Balpeh, and he would sit all day. It was hard for him to read inside. So he would sit in Chazar Mishnais. And I remember anybody who came in, he would give him the Mishnais, sit down, listen if I'm saying good. I heard from he used Plotkin, Mullah Plotkin, his father was Avramele Plotkin, the famous Rov. So he told me once, in Frankreich, in Paris, he was close to my Zayda. So he asked him once, why do you have so much Mishnah Balpeh? So he told him, see, after a person passes away, and they put you down at the Tara bread. the board that they have that they put down the body and to do the Tara. It's very lonely, he says. You lay there all alone, it's very lonely. So if you know Mishnah is Balpeh, you're able to chazar it in your mind, so it's not lonely. Then he says he made his own connection. When my Zayda passed away, Rabbi Ushpol was the head of the Chevra Kadisha. He was the Dr. Chesed. So Rabbi Ushpol told him, not knowing anything, that when they were doing the Tara, and he was laying on the thing, he says
his lips were moving.
His face shined like a live person. So he says it reminded him, but he said to him, yeah. But he was a real Hasidic. He was a real, he didn't learn in Leibel, but he came to the Rabbi. I remember he said once, I don't remember the detail, when he had to go to the Prizif. Prizif is when you're drafted. People had to get out of it. So they came to the Rabbi. I don't remember what the Rabbi Shab told him, gave him a bracha, and he got out of it. But he was from Hasidic Eden. He was very close friend to his father, and he was there in town. A little bit he was upset at Rebbe's father because he promised him the shechita, and then when it became available, he didn't want to give it to him. But he says, I never regretted it. He continued learning with the Rebbe. The Rebbe's mother writes in her Tichreines that when the Rebbe got married in Barsha, they made in Katrinaslav a big party, mamish like a chassan. The only thing that was missing was chassan kala. And people were so happy. So she writes, and danced on the table, and I was zeicher to be the Malamed of the Eidim for Rebbe. And later, it was the Malamed of the Rebbe. He used to write to the Rebbe from time to time. Many times he would ask me to bring it to Merkez. And he didn't close the letter, he didn't seal it. So, I saw. Every time he signed his name, before he signed his name, Ben, his mother's name, he would write, Mishtachave hineni mul hadras koche. That was his expression.
That's unbelievable. To his student.
Mishtachave hineni mul hadras koche. The first letter that the Rebbe wrote him after the Nesias, I didn't see the letter because we have a lot of letters that the Rebbe wrote him. The Frierdiker Rebbe, I don't see the letter, but he told me. The first letter after Nesias, the Rebbe put in with his handwriting on the title, Rabbi, not Reb. Reish Beis Yudot, the Patach on the Rabbi.
Do you know this is the greatest chesed of the Rebbe and all the Rebbeim, that they allowed this kind of, that they tolerated it and didn't run away. You know, people gushing over the Rebbe, and he didn't make fun of people, and he didn't shrug it off, and he didn't say, "Oh, stop it." You know how people do. "Oh, stop it." Took it. You know, you see the video of J.J. Hecht at the rallies, and he's pouring brachas and he's praising the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is just standing there, just taking it, not laughing at him. Not, you know, there's a lot of awkwardness when people praise you. The Rebbe took it so nicely. It's Pashut HaTova that he did. His teacher would say, "Mishtachave hinni al mul." He took it. Amazing.
You know what reminds me? There's a word someone asked the Ruzhin that I think the Ruzhin, that they give so much covet. Doesn't it make you about Gaiva? How do you take so much covet? About Gaiva, I'll tell you. I'll give you a moshel. He said a very interesting moshel. The general is a very chosh of a person, the general of the army, and people know him. The king is rather the king, but the king no one saw. Who sees the king? Once the king was walking along with the general. People in the street saw two people. So the general, they knew who he was. The other guy didn't know who he was. So they gave such cover to the general and didn't turn around to do anything to the king. How do you think the general felt? Every more cover he got, he wanted to bury himself. Here, the king, they're not doing anything to the king, and they're giving me cover. He says, that's the same thing how I feel. I feel the Eibishter is all over, and they're giving me cover. Every minute of cover, I want to bury myself. It's another mice similar to Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe was by Hakofes. The Gabbai announced Mechabit with Ataresa policy. Mechabit Kveit Kedusha Adeinu Mereinu V'Rabbeinu with Ataresa Hakofe. Alter Rebbe smiled. So he saw that Alter Rebbe liked it, so he repeated again. Later on, they heard Alter Rebbe in his room walking back and forth, saying to himself, they said it once. Why did they have to say it twice? So the Gabbai felt very bad. He felt that he caused him Agnes Nefesh. So he came to the Alter Rebbe. He said, "That's Mechila." He thought the Alter Rebbe is happy. So he said, "No." He said, "So why do you smile?" He said, "I'm Kabbal's on Yisurim Be'ava."
I remember you told us that story. Kabbalah Yisurim Ava, but Ava, not just Ava for the Eibishter, Ava for the people that are giving you the Yisurim, the people that are singing your praises. So it's a big teva. So how many years was your Zayda in Crown Heights? How many years was he alive in Crown Heights?
He came to Crown Heights in Toshin Ches, I think it's Ches, and passed away Toshin Chob Gimel. 5 years.
And he was retired. He wasn't.
Tired. He was sick. He was.
I mean, he wasn't a mashpia. He didn't have a role, position anywhere. He was.
No. He sat in his house all day and tried to learn, with the glasses, whatever he could, and then he sat in Chavit.
But did people try to verbring with him? Did people realize what they had in their midst?
Yeah. They used to come and talk to him, verbring with him. Some of the elder Heiko Khanim used to be an often guy. There was Alma Shimon used to come a lot. It was geschmack to hear how he davens. He didn't daven by Arichas, like to say 5 hours and Chassidus. He davened slow. Every word mamish pronounced, like it says, you should do it like you're counting money. And such a geschmack, such a nice sometimes. And he said, daven not so late. But no, sometimes after Fabring it is, I sleep late. I wake up, I would hear. He was sitting in the same room. I would hear him davening a lot. So I remember what you say daven heidu kol kei amim alilim Hashem Shemayim Masad. It says the can't tzrichel hafsik. After you say kol alilim, you have to make a hefsik, stop, and then you say Hashem Shemayim Masad. I remember what he used to do. Kol kei amim alilim, pui. That's what he used to say, pui, and then he would say Hashem Shemayim Masad. That gave me an understanding, maybe in Aleinu, it says different Ayem Yem, but maybe one of the reasons Aleinu why we spit when we say, hey, Mishtachim Leibel Lorik, is like, hey, Mishtachim Leibel Lorik, Pui. That's what he used to do.
That's an interesting interpretation of Lahafsik.
Yeah. Okay, I'm believing. Pui.
Yeah. So when you were there for those 3 years, where were you you were in Bedford and Dean?
I learned in Bedford and Dean.
My father was there with you then?
Your father was a younger kid then. I think he was older than me with a half a year or something, I think. But I came straight to Rabbi Ushpol into this Medrash, and he still learned that year by Rabbi Garfinkel.
And where was it of Yoel and all of this? When did you and him start learning about Rabbi Yoel, or separately or together or whatever it was?
Well, was Chassidus. We're talking about Nikla. Nikla was the regular most of the day. Now Chassidus, the first year that I was there, I learned Chassidus by Rabbi David.
Raskin?
Rabbi David Raskin. And then the next year, Rabbi Yoel gave the older Kita. And but the next, even towards the end of that year, I started learning also about Rabbi Yoel. And I think your father, I mean, he learned together, but I don't know that year, which year because see, we met up by Rabbi Bukid, you would learn for 2 years. The Bismedish was a 3-year program. First year, Rabbi Ushpol, then second and third was Rabbi Bukid. Now, your father was a Kita before, so when I came to Rabbi Bukid, he went to Ushpol. The second year, Rabbi Bukid, he came to Rabbi Bukid also. So that's when we were together. Remembering correctly, we're talking about Tovshin Chol Gimel. Tovshin Chol Gimel. That's quite a long time ago.
Yeah, we didn't when we spoke on the phone. One of the names that we mentioned was not Rabbi Yoel, but I hope that you can talk to us a little bit about Rabbi Yoel. I'm going to put up a picture of him. 1 second. Oops. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
A nice picture.
Yeah. Okay.
So my father told us that his class used to pull the plug out of the wall so that the Biel wouldn't notice that the class was over. So that he should keep on teaching because they could not get enough of him.
So mainly it was done by Fabringens. Fabringens clearly they made it. He would verbring from 7 o'clock to verbring to 7 in the morning. Like this Kislev, or this he would verbring, and even by learning. Well, in Chassidus, he was for Arkita. And now when I say Arkita, your father is part of the group. Your father, and even though he was like Arkita, Zalman, Daich, Shalom, L'chaim, and others. So these two Kittas really, we became one. So Rabbi Yael, we were the Talmidim of Hakim of Rabbi Yael. So we took a lot from Rabbi Yael. Sai in his Biur in Chassidus, Sai is Ashbol in Chassidus, and Sai in his Fabrengens. The Fabrengens gave in a lot of Chassidishkeit. He talked. His head is a Meredike head. He has a Meredike Zikorin and a Meredike Tfise, which the MSC is. His Tfise is more than his Zikorin. He doesn't have a photographic memory. People think, oh, he remembers it. He doesn't. He has a good Zikorin. The main thing is he grasps the Inyan so good. That's why he remembers it. It comes more from a Havana than just Zikorin. Photographic memory could chazer over if he doesn't know what you're talking about, and he'll say over words. But he chabs the Inyan. So he came to America. You know why? Tovshin Tes, Rashag was in Eretz Yisrael. And he said a Maimer there. Rabbi Yael was 19 years old then, got up and repeated a Maimer. So Rashag says to him, oh, dir darf man haben in New York beim Rebbe. By the Friedrich Rebbe yet. So anyway, I don't know if that caused him to come, but that was, so he started making papers anyway, and then Tavshin Yud, he finally got papers and he's going to come to America to the Friedrich Rebbe. He got onto the ship Yud Aleph Shvat, Sunday. He hadn't heard that the Friedrich Rebbe was installed. So the ship left. Came to America a week later. How long it took? 2 weeks. I don't know. It came, and he took, I guess, a taxi from port to 770. He hadn't heard yet that the Friedrich Rebbe was installed. The first thing he walks into 770, he sees a bocher says, "Was macht der Rebbe?" And what the guy told us, that's when he heard. So he dreht sich for a few months, but didn't know what to do. So he asked the Rebbe, maybe he should go back. And the Rebbe said to him, you got Haskama of the Shver to come. Yes. And the Shver knew what's going to happen. And he told you to come. I said, man, you have to stay. So it's interesting that he came to the Friedrich Rebbe but never managed to see him. He saw the Friedrich Rebbe as a little kid. Because when his family left Russia, the Friedrich Rebbe, I think, was in Riga, or Vienna, then, I don't remember. And they went to Yechida, so he was a kid. The story goes that the Friedrich Rebbe put him on his lap. And the story goes that he gave him a piece of chocolate or something. I don't know. You ask him about it, he doesn't like to talk about it. I don't know why. But he came, you could see him in Hashemayim, he came to be the Chazer with the Rebbe. And the Rebbe by Fabrengen once said to him, I think Achon Shal Pesach, so he's L'chaim, so gedenken was meret. So he knows Chassidus and understands Chassidus, and he got, the real depth of what the Rebbe Sinyonim, of what the Rebbe Biurim and Chassidus and everything, he understood. So,
I want to just say this kind of bachim that you must have been. So, I mean, how old were you when you learned Rabbi Yael?
14.
14 years old. 14 years old is Shir Aleph Mesifta.
Yeah.
Shir Aleph Mesifta. I mean, it's a clown show. With all due respect to my generation and my kids' generation. Shir Aleph Mesifta is you're not serious yet. To think that Rabbi Yael was your teacher and that you appreciated him and that you learned from him. How serious were you guys? What kind of bachrim were you? I'm serious. What kind of bachrim were you? 14 years old?
All the bachrim with tzaddikim, no. Bachrim also, even then, had a Yitzhahara. but this is what, I guess we were kailing for this. I remember he used to, besides Mashal Chassidus, he used to teach, after every Fabrengen, he would, for this Medrash of Bedford, he would chazer the Sichas. I remember when I was 14, I started writing Hanochas of the Fabrengen from after Shabbos. So I got into this business. Started when I was 14, maybe 13 and a half, first year also. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, but Well, we came to I came to 770. I wasn't 16 years old yet. Learn.
He's 770 bacher.
770 bacher.
A 15-year-old 770 bacher.
Yeah, 15-year-old. We sat at one table, and when we came, the elder Bochum was Melech Zwiebel, Lopkowski. We sat by one table.
Shimike.
Shimike was from the younger ones. Wasn't as old as that. See, they all got married in Tafshin Chav Daled, and he got married in Tafshin Chav Hei, because he was a little bit younger than them. They were the older ones. We were from 70, and well, you know what? When we were kids, from 13, 14, 15, we Dreitzach in 770. We were the kids of 770. What would you do at the end of the day when we finished in Yeshiva Bedford? 9 o'clock is over. We came to 770. As little kids, we came to 770. That was our life. Our life was 770. Mingled with the Bochum. So.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture now. Who's this?
The Shmuel Levitten.
Shmuel Levitten.
Yeah, he was the official mashpia of 770. Besides that, he was a Rov, and he was officially the Rov of Beis Harav by the Frierdiker Rebbe. He was considered the Rov of the Rebbe, and by the Rebbe also, he was the Rov. The Rebbe referred to him once as the Rakshik Rov. The Frierdiker Rebbe sent him to a city called Rakshik to be the Rov there. As a shliach he went. He was also in Kutayis. He did a lot. B'shlichas of the Frierdiker Rebbe. He was from the Elter Chassidim. His father was the Mashgiach in Lubavitch. When Lubavitch Tefat Mimi by the Rebbe Rashav, his father was the Mashgiach. And he was, even as a young bocher, he was considered a Choshev bocher. Told me he started learning it a day when he was 14 years old. You're wondering what 14 years old, he was 14 years old. And he said, this he told me. I asked him once, he was a person about Shmuel. He knew a lot of stories and was able to say, and he was reliable. So I once asked him, why don't you write them all down? And give it out as a sefer. So he said, I'll tell you why. When I was 14 years old, I started Yeridei. And I had a hard time. Yeridei is a different type of limud than to have the shittas, this shita, that shita, and this. So I went into Yechidus to the Rebbe Rashab. And he asked the Rebbe. So the Rebbe Rashab told him, so you know what you do? You write. If you write it down, it clarifies it in your mind. And then the Rebbe Rashab looked at him and said, but don't write a sefer. So he said, the Rebbe told me not to write a sefer. That's why he's not writing. Because the Rebbe Savort, no matter what, he told me once something similar. He said, when he was by the prison, he was supposed to stand to go to the army to draft. So everyone did themselves different things. They made themselves sick. They made themselves this. So one of the things they used to do, in those days, they wouldn't take someone who had to wear glasses. They wouldn't take him to the army. So they would start wearing glasses. So he asked the Rebbe Rashab, maybe I should put on glasses. The Rebbe told him, don't put on glasses. Okay, so he didn't. So he did something else and it worked. Years later, when he was already old, he needed glasses. What did he do? He went to the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe Rishus. Since the Rebbe told him not to wear glasses, he needed Rishus from the Rebbe to wear glasses. So he asked the Rebbe Rishus. And the Rebbe said, you can wear glasses. But here also, I'm just showing that he was 14 years old. He also told me once when he was young, I don't know, 14 or 15, he didn't chap the Maimer. He went into Yechidus and asked the Rebbe to chazer over the Maimer for him, or a certain piece.
Rebbe Rashab.
Yeah, Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab told him over. So I once asked Peretz Mochkin in the Bavitch, the Chassidim were known. This one was a big Avid. This was the Moscow. What was his specialty in the Lubavitch? He told me there's nothing you could pinpoint, but he was always choshev in the Lubavitch. The Rebbe Rashab became a choshev bocher. There's something in him. He's very smart. He's a very smart person, and that gives already. So this is our Peretz Mochkin, yeah. See, Peretz Mochkin was the older Chassidim, but was younger than him. Peretz Mochkin came to Lubavitch in Samachtes. And Reb Shmuel came to Lubavitch in the beginning of the Samach, much older. I asked him, but when you were in Lubavitch, what was his? Is a given choshev be'etzem? He was a real choshev person in Lubavitch. I think he was. Someone said he was the first name after the Rebbe Marash. But I don't know because he was born a month after and there was no name for that month. But he was definitely born right after the Rebbe Marash Stalkis. He was born in Tofresh Mem Gimel. After the Rebbe Marash Stalkis. I remember a person who was, this is by the way, Derech Agav, we're talking already now. I remember a person who was born in Bechari from the Rebbe Marash. And he was named after Tzedek.
Who's that?
No, think. You think?
Somebody was named after who?
Tzedek. He was Mach Mendel. And that was the last Rebbe that was Nistalik.
Somebody was born?
He was born, I don't know which year. 2 years before the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek is 4 years. You have to figure out his age. Mendel
Mendel?
Kunin. Shlomo Kunin's father.
Grandfather? And you remember him?
Sure. I remember him. I even remember he used to speak, this old man who used to speak loud. I remember once he's standing in front of me by Lekach, Mamash in front of me. So he walks over to the Rebbe and tells the Rebbe, like in his voice, it says he should ask for that. Lekach is not the giving. The Rebbe gave him a piece. So we didn't ask, but sticking out your hand, I assume that's Taich Bet and Lekach. But he still remembered from 85 years before that. So he said, with that squeaky voice, he allowed yeah, I remember him. And he was born before the Stalkus of the Tzemach Tzedek.
Born before the Histalkus of the Tzemach Tzedek?
No, they're Marash.
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 You know,
still the Chayiv of the Tzemach
Tzedek. Somebody once pointed out to me that if you wanted to walk this earth with the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe,
how long?
Not so long.
There was one chassid who saw the Alter Rebbe all the way through the Friedrich Rebbe.
Who's that?
I think the Peretz Chaim. He saw the Alter Rebbe when he was a little kid, and he saw the Friedrich Rebbe when the Friedrich Rebbe was a little kid.
It's not even like you had to be 120 years old. You're talking about 1812.
The Rebbe passed away in Ayin Gimel.
Yeah, 1812.
And the Rebbe was born in Samach Beis.
Oh, too. It's 90 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Reb Shmuel Levittin used to fabring with you.
Well,
he's fabring with the Bachrim.
Bavitch in the 70s, the earlier years, like Friedrich Rebbe, later used to be a steady fabringer. But then later, when time you get older, so used to fabring from time to time. But not for long. Used to sit, had a way to talk. He had his way of saying his vertlach, a word, and the way he used to say it. He used to give also a shir tanya. Mo used to give a shir chassidus, but not my time. He used to give a shir tanya once a week for a half hour, from 9 to 9:30 Thursday night. He used to give a shir tanya, and a lot of guys didn't sit there. I used to try to sit there. He used to chazer over what he heard by a shir tanya from the Rashbatz. I remember in one board he said, learning Perek Aleph. It says in Perek Aleph there, everyone has shtei nefoshes, shehein shtei neshama. Shtei neshama, shehein shtei nefoshes. The Rashbatz, when he heard it by Tanya by him. What's the pshat? Shtei neshama, shehein shtei nefoshes. So he said, the way he used to talk. Neshama, a person thinks, neshama. Nefesh is your life. Da wissen die zwei Neshamas, shehein shtei nefoshes. Das ist der Leben. Das ist zwei Lebens. Sie voran zwei Lebens. That's what he used to talk like this. He them. He used to talk like that. Zwei Leben. But the way he used to talk and used to make with his hands. And da wissen das ist der Nefesh von Kinder Shabbat. It's some two inyanim. This is a way of life. Shehein shtei nefoshes. But he used to fabring also, and he used to say stories, and his stories were known to be meduyek. But I personally used to talk to him. I remember when I was getting married, I think the day of my chasana, he walks over to me. He says to me like this, when you chasana got, der Rebbe, nicht mehr sagen, der Rebbe Rashab hat mir gesagt, als bei der Chuppe ist mir mamschich makifim auf dem ganzen Leben. Under the Chuppe, you're mamschich makifim, and the way you say, auf dem ganzen Leben. So he's telling it to me. So I don't know if the Rebbe told him at the day of his chasana, I don't know if he got married in the city of Lubavitch, but before his chasana, he used to have this, when someone came over to me, gave me mazel tov, I had my first son. He was there, came over, gave me mazel tov, and he says to me like this. And he used to make with his hands like this. Each that darfst du frimmer werden. Now that you have a son, you got to become more frum. Now it's not only for you. Now you got someone to give it over to. Each darfst du frimmer werden. That's how I used to talk. But he had his. He was very smart. I remember once when the Rebbe Dam Fadom at Hey. So a chassan came. It was the first chassan since the Rebbe started Dam Fadom. It was Spielman, actually. Spielman from Karnheit. No, chassan, the day after the chassan doesn't wake up so early. So by the time he got to 770, the Rebbe was already holding the middle of Chazar Sashatz. So they pushed him into the front. He wasn't wearing Tal's film, obviously. Pushed him into the front. And at the end of Chazar Sashatz, the Rabbi Groner, I don't know if he said to the Rebbe or gave it settled to the Rebbe that there's a chassan here, not to say Tachna. The Rebbe turns around. He sees him there. So the Rebbe says to him, was gedaven mit Minyan? Oh wait, it was obvious he wasn't daven with Minyan, but the Rebbe made the point. Gedaven, he says no. So the Rebbe says, no, was ist der Din? Als der Chassan nicht gedaven mit Minyan, sie sagt, Tachna sind. Wo ist Arov? So we pushed over the Shmuel, and the Shmuel walks over to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, no, was ist? He was smart. So he says to the Rebbe, soll der Chassan Arush gehen? Let me zanke shaylas. Let the Chassan leave. Like this, if you have a suffix, let the chassan leave. And so the chassan left, and the Rebbe said, Tachna. From then on, they knew that the chassan has to come to the Amidim, or at least stand there with Tal's film. You can't just come. But remember, this was like smart from him to figure out. Later, we found in poskim, some poskim say that. Some poskim say that that's what the chassan should do. Remember, another time, also Tov Shechavei was called, he used to stay, not always the same, but he used to stay sometimes lived by his son, Rabbi Binyamin, across the street. He lived across the big building across Eastern Parkway. He was walking at this and he fell and broke his hand. He had a cast. They took up the cast. He asked the Rebbe, should he bench Gimel? And the Rebbe said, Punkt today, a bocher came from Eretz Yisrael, so he's going to bench Gimel. So you stand there and it'll be mitzi, so you go out the suffix. I understand the suffix because it says only if it's life-threatening, but if he broke his hand. On the other hand, I think for Alten Niden, even though in those years, he was in the 80s and stuff, I don't know, the 80s, so falls and break your hand. Anyway, that's what the Rebbe said. The Pale, the Bocher came, had no idea was flying. He saw a minion downstairs of 70, they think a bench cable there. Didn't know. He called up Rabbi Shmuel for an aliyah, and he bench Gimel. There was nobody there. As he's walking away from his place, passes by the Rebbe, he tells the Rebbe, how about Link benched? So the Rebbe says to him, so sein zu gesund. But I mean, he was, remember once by the Rebbe Tam Verlomet, Os Chavei, and when he came to the Sphira, the Rebbe started saying the wrong Sphira. So there's someone in the back that screamed out the right one. He didn't mean to, no, the Rebbe, he just out of, it's natural that, instinct, you scream out. And he was a forget for the Emes Chassidish Eden who did that. So when they ever finished davening, so I was standing there, Shmuel used to daven right next to me. Shmuel walks over to this guy. He says, a Rebbe verricht man nicht. Rebbe you don't fix. A Rebbe verricht man nicht. Anyway, he was definitely at Sior. The Friedrich Rebbe once sent a Bocher in Yechidus asked the Droche Davide sent he should sleep one night in Reb Shmuel's room. The room now, which is the library, not the Rebbe's library, in some 70, right next to the Chiddush Sheni, used to be Reb Shmuel. It was Reb Shmuel's room. He slept there. So the Rebbe told him, "Ein Nacht schläft dort mit Reb Shmuel im Zimmer. Wo sehen wir, Chassidische Schläft." So he was He came to America. How did he come to America? The Frierdiker Rebbe from Europe sent different times Chassidim to come to America to Fabrein, because there was a lot of people that came from Russia here to America, and they were shaykhs to Chabad, and they came to America, and they needed some. So the Frierdiker Rebbe, each of the Masmid was here for a year. Rabbi David Shifrin was here for a year. The Frierdiker Rebbe sent him, and then the Frierdiker sent up Shmuel and said, "You see which caliber he was." And when he came here and he was about to leave, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to him, "He shouldn't leave because it's a strange letter, because the Frierdiker Rebbe told other people he doesn't think there'll be a war." There was a war, so you know what? There was a Polish Rebbe that said there will be a war. So they asked him, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe says there won't. So he said, "You don't understand. With the Lubavitcher Rebbe's opinion, they reckon Lamaila. So he doesn't want to agree. With my opinion, I'm just telling you what I think is going to be." But anyway, to him, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote that the time will come soon that we're going to have to leave this Kolag Lili So'elu. So stay. So he stayed. His wife and the children were in Russia, and that's why one son got killed and his wife. Another son, Rabbi Yanko, came out with us, with our families when they came out, and Rabbi Yamin came out earlier. But he stayed. That's why he survived, because he stayed here. So he was from those people that he got sent. So he was from the top Hasidim, as we could say. He was actually. They say there was the whole question of the Stavo of the Rebbe. So I think someone said they saw it, that the way they wrote it up, that the Rebbe is leaving Lubavitch to Mendel. So the Rebbe wrote, Mele the Shver left Lubavitch to his sons-in-law and to Reb Shmuel Levittin. But who do you think I'm leaving Lubavitch to? Something along this line. But he mentioned that he left Lubavitch to Reb Shmuel. He was a real Chassidish Sharit. But he had his, besides the Hader but see, as much as he's older Chassid and guys at Tainus, the Manishkim Bakusher, not like these things. Probably to be Bakusher like he was when he was young, it's probably impossible. But the Peil Mamish, Lemaise, he did. Who got Shazar to come to the Rebbe? He did. Shazar had a Shaila to come and not to come. The government didn't want him to come. So the Shmuel Rebbe sent him Shmuel and he spoke to him. He spoke to him and I think he knew him from before also. I think he knew him from
Listen, that a Rav should tell somebody a Rebbe verricht nicht is a schwachen not mekusher.
Yeah.
Not like he was an Amoret, a Pashti.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't correct a person's fear. Somebody texted me now that I should ask you about the words mimal mamish for Reb Shmuel. It means anything to you? You said that if I bring about the words shtein shamish and shtein fashes.
Yeah.
So somebody texted me the words mimal mamish.
I don't know if I heard it from him. It's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe, but it's possible that he chazed it over, which maybe I said it once, but I don't remember now. There's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe that says that touches like this. The word mamish is a stira in this place. Why? The word mamish means mamoshes. Right? Mamish means something that's mamoshes, tangible. Mamish also means really. So when you say chelik elakam mal mamish, means really a chelik of the Eibishter. And we use the word mamish, which is gashmius, which is mamoshes. So the answer is, that's exactly what the Alter Rebbe wants to say. That the neshama, when it comes down into mamish, bleibt es noch als a chelik elakam mal mamish, mamish a chelik of the Eibishter. I think that must be the word it means. And could be, I heard it from him then also. Could be.
Okay, I know you're getting restless. I can see you getting restless, but I don't want to let you go until we talk about one more person, and then maybe we could do a part 2 because we didn't even get halfway down the list. Okay, here's this next.
I didn't comment.
Huh?
You see, I didn't comment.
No, I know.
Okay, who are you talking about?
One second. Wrong picture. Hold on a second. The wrong picture. Talking about this Jew.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of pictures here. What's wrong?
Oh, you see a bunch of pictures?
Yeah. I see Reb Shmuel. I see Reb Amduchman. I see others. I see Reb Mendik.
Okay, I'm gonna fix it.
Oh, Reb Getche.
Yeah.
My Happy Life. Milk.
What'd you say? To get you what?
Matches.
Mortal Lifshitz. Mortal Lifshitz came to last year. He lived in Crown Heights. But this is a picture from Russia. Okay.
So the man with the long white beard is
Getche. His name is Getzel. So they called him Getche in Russia. He was actually someone even referred by Fabringen to him. People felt it wasn't maybe the right way to say it. Referred to him as the father of the Baalei Tshuva in Russia. So someone said, "How could you say it?" Like someone said to this guy, "How could you say it? The Rebbe is the father." Good. Everyone knows that he doesn't mean that Rebbe was the top. But the guy who's I remember it was Rosenstein, the German Rosenstein. Anyway, he was in Russia, in Moscow. I'll tell you the truth. He wasn't a big masculine chassidus. He wasn't a big avid. He was a Tayeret. I don't know if he's a Ishposhet, you could call him. A Tayeret, Ibrigem to the Kavanah, Mamish. And he was the one that ran, so to speak, the underground Baal Tshuva movement in the 70s, in the 80s. Because I went to Russia, it was in the beginning of the 80s. So he was full. So he, every year, to organize of the shluchim that the Ezra Sachim sent to Russia, it all went through him. There was a few other guys. There was a bocher called Yude, the Hakotten they called him. And then there was Grisha Rosenstein, another person, different. But he was the main guy. He told me that there used to be the Fabrengens, the underground Fabrengens used to be in his house. Then, one time what happened, a guy came and tried to get in and became part of the group. What they didn't realize was that he was planted by the KGB. And they had started having only tzores then, so they stopped this whole thing of the Fabrengens in his house. All the planning of what to do when you get to Russia, this is all down to him. He was the one that dealt with everything. So we came to Russia, and we came to his house the first thing. So I remember from the first thing that we had to do was make a phone call to him when we got to Russia. But we couldn't call from the hotel because the phones were bugged. Even about 3 streets around the hotel we couldn't use because it was bugged. So we had to walk a while, and then I called him, and I didn't say my name. I said, "Wir kommen von Florida." Actually, this other book that I mentioned before, when he wrote communication with Ezra Sachin about us coming, he wrote, "Ha'ish shebo mimokim harochzo." That's what he wrote. Beach. Didn't want to write. Anyway, so he says, "Kum tariber to mir, come to me." I said, "What's the address?" So he gave me his address, but he said, the address was the place I blocked before. He says, "You should marry Sayin." So you should do that. Remember, we came to him and we spoke. That's when we made up all the things that we had to plan for the 2 weeks. 2 weeks we were in Russia. We had to plan, all came to get you. And he was mamish, this other Wocher, he was Makar of him, and he made him, and he was Makar of other people. I remember then when he came Purim, he came there before Purim. He came to Daven to the shul. I stood next to him. He asked me to stand next to him. I'm a guest. And I remember when the Rabbi saw me, so I guess I want to give him a aliyah. So he asks me name, get it, says tell him his name, but he says Achidish. Abizogim it harav. Can't give it up. And then I was standing next to him, davening, meet them all. I see a guy schlepping a big ladder. Schleps it all the way to the front of the Kodesh, goes up on it, takes out the camera and starts taking pictures. I say to get you, very does. I mentioned the government, the KGB, don't do anything. They take pictures. They have pictures of everybody. Then, whenever they need, they have the information that you were in shul. All of a sudden, I turned around everybody's davening bariches. Everyone had his talos over his head. And me too. I didn't need to. Saying this was, and he used to come he used to walk, no, he used to live, place, not to walk, take a train, which is an hour to go, to come to shul. He used to go, because this king used to come to shul, and he was there, but he was known to be the one that took care. And all the planning of all the Baalei Teshuva was through him. And when I came there, we saw on his thing pictures of all the shluchim who came from America with their families, because we brought him and he put it up. He felt it like his own family.
Where did he come from? Was he a Lubavitcher in his childhood? Was he?
He was not. I think the Lubavitcher, like my parents who left those years, didn't even know him. See, when after guys came out from Russia in 1969, 1970, 71, those times, so most of these people, the people who came out of Russia in 1946, knew them. But him, I don't think he came onto the horizon later. So I don't know where he came from, but he became to Rebbe. Actually, later he asked the Rebbe, he wanted to come to America. The Rebbe didn't let, because he did so much work over there. The whole Baalei Teshuva movement, which was run by different people, but he was the head. People would get advice from him. And he would, everything went through our house. L'moshel, when I had to know, when we came, one of the things that they sent along with us was the electronic watches just happened to start then. They knew that if you send in the packages, as they send packages with different things, that if they sell it in the black market, they used to live a year on it, for half a year. So they wanted to know, they wanted to put in these packages, these watches, and wanted to know how much you could get for it.
Digital watch.
Digital watch, those then it really started. There's a suffix of 300 ruble or 400 ruble, which is probably a salary of a year, or half a year. So we came, the first day, we came to Getch's house, we brought the watch, and Yuda came then, and I gave it to Yuda, and I said, well, before we leave, in 2 weeks from now, please have an answer. Find out, still at hate, how much you could get for it. The last day before we left, we came to Getch's house again. We were there in between also. So I said to Getcha, we need an answer now. He said, we can't call because they'll hear a voice, strange voice on the phone. By the way, so I'll call. So he calls up, he says, Getcha. I mean, he says, Yuda. He says, and I understood what he meant. And how much is it? That's all he said. But it all came from Getch's house. So Yuda answers, it's a drinya for Chabad. Hangs up the phone, he says, it's 300 ruble, not 4. That's what he said. I said, Getcha. Chassidus state as a mole, taste Chabad.
What's that? How do you get 300? How do you come to 300?
No?
Oh, 3. Okay.
Yeah, he told us the drinya for Chabad. He turns around. I mean, they knew how they spoke. So he turns around to me. He says, he answered Chabad. That means it's 300 ruble. So I said, we learn in Chassidus that sometimes das is nichlek l'shnayim. The Mele is Keza Chabad is 4. Ooh, he's gerecht, he says. Calls him back. He says, Yuda, is das nichlek l'shnayim? So Yuda says, nah, then das is nicht nichlek l'shnayim. That's how we knew it was 3. But where did he get all this information? Everything went to the Getch's house. It was such a geschmackeri. To sit and talk to him was such a pleasure. Mitzad. Not you could hear like good svoras and good ideas. He wasn't like that at all. But he was a heartsick erit, such a heartsick erit. I haven't met one like that.
I was sitting at a red light the other day listening to your Fabrengen, where you were talking about how your taxi driver took a red light.
Yeah.
Yeah. A taxi driver took a red light because that was how that's how they attracted the police, so that they could tell the police that somebody's suspicious in the back seat. Yeah.
Exactly.
So my question is, first of all, you were sent to Russia by Ezes Achim, yes?
Yes.
Who was that? Who was that?
It all started when the mental Futterpass came out of Russia. He started making a tumult. How come we don't help the Eden in Russia enough? Because when he came out, there was still all the people there. I mean, except those that say 1946, most of the Eden was those that stayed. So he said you have to. So he initiated to organizing an organization that would help them. In those days, in the beginning, it was only helping by sending packages, which officially, legally, you could do. So he got the Jungelite, the Russian Jungelite that came from Russia. So he got the Meshel Evertov, Olav Shalom. He got Dalia Kor, follow up Shalom. He got, who else was involved? Who else was Labrit Kamochkin, all of Shalom? They hired a few people, young guys, to help them. It was an organization under the Rebbe, but the Rebbe didn't want it should be called Lubavitch, because then it would be treif in Russia. So when they sent, I consider myself sending by the Rebbe, because they are a branch of the Rebbe. But so that's what it was. So it was these people, these Ingolite, and they collected money for it, and they sent back. And then later, when it started already, the Svara of sending Shluchim, they sent Shluchim. So they sent every once in a while 2 people to go there, and it was all still underground because the Matzav is still Russia, communism, Galans and Shturim. And I went.
How did they come to Miami to send? They asked you to go, and your wife went with you.
First, they asked me to go with somebody else, and that person couldn't get a visa, so they suggested maybe go with your wife. So I said, yeah. And that was the first time. 2 years later, I went with Reifi Tanah.
Was there a real pachad? I mean, I know it wasn't 1940, it wasn't 1930, but the way you described sitting in the taxi, it wasn't 1980, it wasn't 1990 either.
Yeah, exactly. The flower, wherever you go, wherever you went, and the way they looked, you saw it. I expected them to follow me, and maybe they did, which I don't know. But by the way, the second time I went, I had the schus to be arrested and go to Spalerke.
You serious?
Yeah.
Did you make it a Shemus HaMaisa?
It was so long. It was a small thing. We went to see the Spalerke for this part, And the way it's there, you have the buildings, then you have across the street, you have other buildings with a whole courtyard. So we had a little camera, so Reifi Tenhaus was taking pictures from Spalerke. At the corner, when we came there, the corner, Spalerke is a big building, and at the corner was a guard. And here across the building was this, I taking pictures, took pictures, and he's walking closer to take better pictures. And he's starting to walk out. I said, Reifi, don't walk out. It's illegal to take a picture from that building. Nah, don't worry. Took out the pictures. As we came out and he's taking the pictures, I'm looking, I was scared. I see the guard starting to walk towards us. Within a minute, he was surrounded by soldiers like this. They took us in and they questioned us. And we were there about an hour, but we were afraid that they'll take the camera away and there are pictures there of people, because that's the worst thing, that they'll see whom we have contact with. But they didn't. We're still scared that maybe they're waiting when we go out. That's when they're going to take the camera. But I don't know, they forgot, whatever. But they took us, they questioned us. The guy questioned us. They said, what are you guys doing here? Wow. I said, we came for a tour. What do you guys do? So we said, we're businessmen. We have a business. What kind of business do you have? No, so we made up a paper that there was Ainsworth, Sri Ainsworth used to live here, and he had a business of the digital watches. So we said, we work for a business of electronics. So the guy said, electronics? You sure you're a spy? So electronics? Then we started talking, and 5 days ago, we were in the Spalerke for about an hour. So
they didn't take your camera, and they didn't even take the roll of film.
No.
That's a miracle in Spalerke, another miracle in Spalerke.
See, the people who went, the Shluchi went before us, took pictures of Habrengins of what they did. On the way back, they took away their cameras, custom. So the first stop the plane made, they ran to the phone, called 770, gave over to the Rebbe, and they right away, mosquitoes gave over to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said not to worry. But the Rebbe was very, very worried. The Rebbe did not want to do anything to erase them on, or they should have any information. Because this would be the worst thing if they look and they want to use it. See, not always are they in the mood of using it, so they want to, but if they want to use it, they have. The worst thing was to have a foreigner dealing with a foreigner. That's propaganda. The worst thing by them is propaganda. It's the worst ammunition, the worst enemy. So the Rebbe was worried. So after, there was another shliach, went another time, after us, a while after us, came back, wrote up the duch, as we all did, made copies of it, bound it, and gave it out to his friends. Or Mishpache, Afabringen, the Rebbe spoke about it. How could you do such a thing? That's a bomb. You never know which hands it's going to fall into. You need that they should have a hand of your duch. They could fall in the hand of the KGB. Because I could tell you, they, B'tzudosam Prusa, that's for sure. I am sure there are people who came to me, saw me different places. You're from America, oh, give regards to this and this person in America, and I would write down names. I could tell you, I'm sure some of them were agents of the KGB here in America. One guy came back, a guy told me I have a cousin in Texas, if you could call him. Came back, I sat down, I called the guy. I could guarantee you this guy was a KGB agent. So why did you go there? What did you, okay, so what is it that you were doing there and who sent you? And Mamish interrogating like you could have the KGB. I could guarantee you that he was KGB. In Leningrad, when we were there, I was Sadegdushin by a chasana. Why? Because they didn't have, no one wanted Mitzvah Kedushin. It was illegal to make a religious ceremony. So if any person from outside came, they would utilize him to Mitzvah Kedushin. So by a chasana. No, after you can imagine what the chasana was like. Anyway, but after the chuppah, so we were drengzach, so people came over to me. Who are you? So one guy, whoever I spoke to by Yove, he's here. And 10 times he asked me, is Fidish, is in welche Schule seid ihr Arov? I'm Arov, nicht Gerov, I'm not a businessman. 5 minutes later, I'm talking to somebody else. He said, is welche Schule seid ihr Arov? I guarantee you this guy was a KGB agent. And some of the unsere Anash there told me that there are some people they don't know because it's a family, they don't know. And I got up as a shaitan and I spoke to the people. Vergessen, als in Leningrad. And I said, und da halt nicht stark, und da haben sie das Nefesh, und da tun Mitzvahs, und da nicht folgen. They said to me later, some of the Anash there, what, how did you get up and speak? We don't know who the people are here. Even if you know who the people are, you never know. But how do you speak like that?
But weren't you sent partially to give that kind of a message over, to give chizuk?
Yeah, but not when you sit with eigene mamash, eigene mention, but not when you sit somebody, there are a few people that don't know. And they said, I feel that when you know, if you really know who they are, it's no problem. But sometimes you see a guy, he's a stranger, but I happen to know who he is. Can't trust him. When we came to Leningrad the second time, we were told by the people there about a certain guy that you'll see him in the shul and he's a gabbai, I don't know, whatever. Don't trust him.
Alabavitcher. It's wild. My brother told me that when he went to Russia, after Russia was not even Russia anymore, in 1991, and they asked the taxi driver to take them to Shpalerka. It was no more KGB. The guy stopped 6 blocks away from Shpalerka and he told them you can walk the rest of the way. And they said, but it's over there. He said, I don't go closer to this building. I'm sorry. Pachad. And you and your wife not afraid to go.
When we went to Russia, we were afraid. But my mother and my father, but mainly my mother, for the 2 weeks we were there, didn't sleep at night.
Well, they were Russian.
That's why they knew what it is. They didn't sleep there. Not to say about 10 years ago, my son Levi is in Menelpen. So
right.
They made an evening and they invited me and my wife to come and speak about our trip to Russia as underground. So we came there, we had a big crowd. But before we started, my son Levi says he wants to give the introduction. So he got up and he says, I remember those times when my parents left. They didn't tell us where they're going to go. They told us they're going to Israel because no one knew here where we were going. Then he said, we as kids, we were little kids, we found out that they're going to Russia. So as long as our parents were away, we were sure that they're not coming back. That's how afraid we were. I said, I never heard it. I never knew it till he said it then. I never knew that that's how the kids felt. First time he said it. Because we knew Russia, we heard from in our house, Russia, my parents are always talking about the problems of Russia, the arrests and the killing. I didn't know. We didn't know, we were sure that they're not going to come back. We were so afraid. It's not like in the Peizayan and not like that, but it still was. Anyway, now, was sagst du jetzt? At least it makes the tonners go faster.
Yeah. I want to know if you remember when we were in yeshiva by you, there was a guy who used to come, daven, with a talis full of silver, an older Jew, and he used to jump during the davening. He was I don't know where he came from. He came from outside the yeshiva, obviously, a Polish Yid, with a gigantic atara, an elderly Yid, and he used to jump and jump and jump during the davening, make a lot of noise with the atara.
The beard without a beard.
With a beard. Not Mr. What's his name? Not
Mr. Hirsch. Mr. Hirsch. You remember Mr. Hirsch?
No. I remember the guy that used to say it was a character. His son is a shliach in Morristown. Brafman. That's him. I remember Mr. Brafman. But this was a chassid. He looked like a chassidish, like a Polish Yid, jumping during the davening with a lot.
He lived in Miami.
I don't know. I was going to ask you. I don't know. I was going to ask you who he was.
There was this man that we used to call, but I don't know if years, maybe earlier, the Turid. He used to sit and learn Tur all day. Could be it was maybe years before you came. He was not a Turid. Then we had Mr. Hoyish, a guy who used to come and this. I don't remember who you mean.
Anyway, one day.
Oh, I don't remember his name, but I think he said that he was in a concentration camp. And
yes.
He promised that if he goes out, to davne mit Islavis.
No, that I remember. He was a survivor, so you remember the guy.
Yeah. And he used to live as a guest. He used to come for the winter. He didn't live in Florida, Miami.
So what do you know about him?
I don't know anything. I remember he said that why does he daven like that? I think in the concentration camp, he promised the Mavish that if I get out, I'll daven with Islavis. Something like. I think that's
because he davened with a Slavus. That was, and he had a silver atara, so it was noisy too. It was a very big commotion. It was very, very nice. I want to finish with one last memory. You brought the Gerer Rosh Kollel, I think, to talk to us. Makes sense? The Rosh Kollel of Ger, Rabbi from New York, I think.
Did a lot of guests, but the Rosh Kollel. What's his name?
His name.
Not Wolf, not Wolpin. Wolpin is not from Ger. Wolpin was from Stolen.
No, he was a Rosh Kollel in Ger. That I remember, and he spoke, and he was giving a very complicated shir, and then, in the middle of the shir, he said, "Shteiten sefer." He said it's a very rare sefer. Most people never heard of it, never knew about it. I don't know. Anyway, Zalman Roth got up, went into the library. You remember Zalman Roth?
Sure.
And got the sefer. Zalman was the librarian. And he got up and he got the sefer. The guy was so surprised. He just finished saying that it's such a rare sefer and nobody knows about it. And Zalman brought it out. And I remember you were very, very proud. It was a very proud moment. What did I write? Rabbi Segel? I don't remember his name. Rabbi Fisher.
Fisher was the Rosh Kollel in Ger.
Yeah, okay, so it was Rabbi Fisher. That's who it was.
I remember a lot of big David, but I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, I could go on and on with my memories. It was amazing years.
You were there. Was your grandfather? Your great grandfather?
Who? Meir Yisrael Lisser? No, he was already passed away.
I passed away. No, I don't remember the years, but he came to Miami.
I didn't even know he used to come to Miami for summer.
No, the winter.
For the winter.
He used to stay by Marcus.
Oh, Marcus in Miami is way before my times.
Way before, yeah.
I don't remember Marcus in Miami.
He used to come. He used to stand next to me. Daven. Now I don't. Years already, I don't daven in yeshiva. I daven in shul. But I used to still daven in yeshiva then. So I had my desk there, and I gave him a place right next to me. He used to daven there next to me. After davening, we used to talk, a lot. One of the things he was standing in the back of the zal with the Rebbe's picture. So he said, "You can't have a picture of a person in the shul." So I said, "You're right." I agree with him. But I told him I didn't put it up for a long time. But when they put it up, I didn't want to take it down. But it's in the back. I said, "It's in the back." So he says, "No, amol. You give a bow like this and in the back." So one day we're saying by Oleinu, I was saying right next to him, but I happened to be standing like this. I went like that. Gives me a tap. That's what das jetzt getan. Used to come down every day with the Armenians.
The Krenitz Erov.
So,
Let me ask you, you bow by Aleinu, by Vanachnu Kodim?
but not with the knees, but with the face.
Yeah? Did Rebbe bow during that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
One place it says some people go with the knees, like mamash, with the knees, like this and like that. But the Rebbe didn't, because it says Kedem Mishtachim.
Yeah.
No, it says both knees and. But the Rebbe used to just bow like that.
So you were a chaver of the Krenitz Erov, Zayn Kleinigkeit.
I always used to tell the Bochum then, this is a tziyur of a emisser Polish Chassidish Yid, Elter Chassid. No, really. He was a real Chassidish Yid. I said, you have now Polish Chassidim, but he is a dogma of a emisser Elter Chassid from Polish Chassidim. Was it a dogma?
I have very, very faint memories of him. We went to visit him in Borough Park a little bit. I don't remember him that much, but that's I didn't know that he used to come down and that you were David with him, Shechem b'Shechem with the Krenitz Erov.
Actually, I had the Choshever place. He had the side. I said, it made a very good impression.
Well, Hashem, good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very, very, very much. Zayn gesund.
The Lord had him sort of status, and we should have always only good memories. Only good memories.
Amen. Amen.
Chassidish.
Yarech Yama Mamlachte over there.
Amen.
Okay, sei gesund.
Goede, ich will say, steht da, you have to learn mit Heim, nicht mit Amol. You can't live with Amol. Simcha
Zecher Amalek. Yes, I heard this from you. Yeah.
So Amol, but nevertheless, it says, however, Melamed says, like you have to learn mit Heim, but to know wie zu lernen, so remembering all, the Friedrich Rebbe yet was begging by the Chassidim, the elder Chassidim, to write down their memories, to write down what they Amol, to write down. Heim, yeah. So over Melamed says it. So. Okay, good.
Sei gesund.